Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Just me today, trying to work on that solo game again. You guys know how we do it over here. Before we get into this, though, I want you to go over to 18afitness.com. That's 18 Alpha Fitness. And Coach Edgerton will get you a tailor-made program just for you based off of, what you want to get out of your fitness. Jeez, man, I'm really bad at this. It's terrible. Um, anyway, kind of where you want to be, where you're currently at, and how much time you have to get there. Whether it's going to Buds to be a SEAL, whether it's going to SFAS to go Green Beret, Ranger, Air Force Special Warfare, Coach Edge has the tailor-made program for you, and the promo code is the number one ready, and it'll get yourself a discount. And really, think about it. If you know that if you're a parent or a friend and you know that your son or daughter or your friend is looking to go into Air Force Special Warfare or just looking to improve their life in general, this is kind of a good Christmas present as we're on the run up to Christmas. Just throwing it out there. You're improving their lifestyle, you're improving their chances. It's a good gift, I promise. And then if not, you can always go over to onesready.com, get some merch. We have Ones Ready merch, and we also sell Attack Elite gear there. So again, in that same vein of getting things for Christmas and better preparation and all that kind of good stuff, that is a great place to go to get that stuff on the run up to Christmas. So as we're kind of talking about Christmas, as we're talking about what it's already, I shouldn't say this, but it's October is when we're recording this. I won't tell you which day, just in case we release this later on down the road. But there are concerns by people, and I think they're rightfully just because they are concerns doesn't mean that they're actually legitimate concerns. But I guess if they're concerns, am I discounting how somebody legitimizes their actual feelings and concerns? I don't really know, and I don't really care. So I'm just going to tell you, here are some of the top 10, if I can get through them, because I am on a timeline here. But if I can get through kind of the top 10 concerns with people joining the military. Like I said, I don't necessarily know that they're valid concerns, but I'll go through them. And really, this kind of is focused at high school students that are seniors that are at least 17. The reason why I say that is because if you're 16 or below, a recruiter's just not going to talk to you. And it's not because it's you, but it's because they can't do anything with a 16-year-old. They need 17 and up. So this one's really going to be focused at either college kids, high school students, or just a younger kind of generation or really it doesn't even have to be younger. It can be older, but if you have concerns about joining the military. So, it goes without saying, it is a major decision to join the military. I don't necessarily know if it's a life changing decision. I think it probably is a life changing. I think the impact depends on your experience in the military, but then also how long you end up serving for. If your 4 years is going to be different than 6, it's going to be different than 10 and 20 and so on. So yeah, I'd say it probably is a life changing decision regardless of what job you choose to do and how long you stay in. But your mileage may vary. So, but starting off with the number one concern right now is personal safety. Um, yeah, sure. At least, and this is not specific to Air Force Special Warfare or any kind of special operations job. This is just military in general. So, the risk of your personal safety? Yes, we have training that we do that is inherently risky. We have deployments that are inherently risky. Even if you're in a job that's something that really isn't a combat arms, job, but you're deployed, you still run the risk of getting injured just in the way of, if there's indirect fire or rocket attacks or anything like that, or maybe you're forward deployed someplace where you're at a forward operating base and it's just not a big base and they get attacked. Like, sure, you're intentionally putting yourself in harm's way to a certain degree forward. And okay, yeah, maybe you have a little bit more risk to your safety, but I would argue, just based off of kind of things that I see at Nellis Air Force Base, is you have a greater risk of getting hurt, injured, killed just by driving on the roads. Multiply that by however much if you're riding a motorcycle, especially in places like Las Vegas or something like that. But you definitely have more of a risk to yourself just driving. And that doesn't change whether you're driving to a military base or whether you're driving to some other kind of private sector or corporate job, like, or just going out in general to freaking go get groceries. Like, these streets are dangerous in the way of drivers. They're crazy out there. So there's a smidge of validity to that, but not too much, in my opinion. Number two would be mental health. So the kind of the psychological impact of military service. You always hear PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, stress. You hear, at least from the special operations side of the house, you hear operator syndrome, which is kind of your adrenal fatigue and lack of excitement, a lack of kind of adrenaline because your body's just like, dude, we've had enough adrenaline. We can't give you any more of it. Like, and if you don't think adrenaline is fun, adrenaline is amazing. If you can mainline adrenaline, like, oh my gosh, dude, it's incredible. But I digress. So mental health. Yes, there are sure some aspects of it, but I don't necessarily think that is any different than what you would expect at a normal job or a normal life. Yeah, if you're in special operations, sure, or even like infantry, whether you're a Marine infantry or 82nd Airborne or 101st or something like that, sure, you're going to potentially experience a lot more combat related stuff, which is going to increase stress levels and increase your chance for PTSD and that kind of stuff. But I don't necessarily know, like, somebody could have PTSD from their upbringing. They could have it from seeing a car accident or responding to a fire. Firefighters have PTSD. Police officers have PTSD. There are plenty of other people that haven't served in any kind of capacity that have some kind of stress levels, PTSD, mental anxiety, that kind of stuff. So I don't think that is unique. And the fact that it's number two is a bit concerning, just in the way that I think after, COVID-19 and all that kind of stuff, I think the anxiety levels within our society in general went up. And I don't think that has anything to do with the military at all. Number three, long-term health. So this one says concerns about long-term physical health, including exposure to environmental toxins, hearing loss. I'm gonna wrap. I mean, I guess that's going to happen if you're working around aircraft, helicopters, you're shooting a lot of guns, demolition, anything like that. Yeah, you're potentially going to have some hearing loss. You're also putting yourself at, a different kind of risk as well when you're doing that kind of stuff. I just, are people really thinking about that? I don't know. I don't know. Leave it in the comments if you are, or send us, definitely leave it in the comments, because I'd love to kind of address your concerns or write any kind of, either validate what you're thinking or kind of correct what you're thinking in terms of long-term health exposure. But does some of that exist? For sure. You think that some of the exhaust and some of the fumes and some of the places that we go are perfectly safe? Absolutely not. Like, there's just, but that's anywhere you go. Sometimes, I've already alluded to living in Las Vegas, but, sometimes the air quality here is not great because we sit in a valley in a bowl, and sometimes the air doesn't move very well. So, smog, dust gets, in the valley, and we just can't deal with it without the wind. So that's just normal living conditions. So I don't know. I don't know if long-term health is valid or not, but it is a thing for sure. Number 4, deployment and separation from family. Just the idea of being in warm zones, separated from your family, separated from people that you care about. I think that's it's not probably, that is a legitimate concern, especially if you are coming into the career fields and you already have a family and you're not, a single dude, single chick that's just out there trying to live their life and travel the world and train their ass off and be part of something great. And if you already have a family coming in, those are definitely conversations that you have to have with your spouse, your kids. If it's a long-term boyfriend, girlfriend, then, have that kind of conversation. It is so much easier these days, though. It is not like back in the older days, and even at the beginning of Afghanistan, where it was all kind of snail mail, letters, packages, and that kind of stuff. We can't remember when Skype came around, but I mean, we didn't have persistent Wi-Fi. There were calling cards and all that kind of stuff, and there was one phone line that you had to call and get connected to people and that kind of stuff. And you might, or satellite phones, iridium phones. These were like one call a week, sometimes, maybe. And you live by the no news is good news. So your family would go, okay, well, I haven't heard from them, so must be, no news is good news, and vice versa. If you didn't hear anything, you didn't get a Red Cross message or anything like that, then you were good. But now most places, even the forward operating bases, have persistent Wi-Fi, because we make sure that we have connectivity, because so much of our stuff, up away from FaceTime and all that kind of stuff, so much of our stuff relies on a good internet connection. So like, it's not much of an issue these days. It's just a lot of FaceTime stuff. So that's just my opinion. Let's hit number 5, which is military culture and discipline. Adapting to strict discipline, hierarchy, and culture of the military, which can be significantly different from civilian life. Yeah, newsflash, that's what it is. But I don't think it's as different as you think. A lot of, like, Hollywood, the news, the media seems to make it out like we're a bunch of robots, that we can't think for ourselves and don't make our own decisions, and we receive orders and we just, move on out. Like, that's not the way it works. In some cases, yes, that is. Like, if they say, hey, we need to move X piece of equipment to, Y location, okay, cool. Like, whether I agree with it or not, like, that's what we're told to do. But then there's other things, like the whole conversation about the C-17 that got the administration, the current administration, presidential administration, wanted a photo op, so they loaded up a C-17 with gear, and then just for a photo op, and didn't actually send it to North Carolina, is not accurate. Like, I don't think of a single active duty or guard military person serving, regardless of the service, would go, no, I don't want to send aid to North Carolina or Virginia or wherever it's going. Like, no, I'm just not going to do it. Especially because one person can't make that call. Like, yeah, you have the aircraft commander that says what goes on his or her aircraft or not, but you have an entire crew that is going to be making decisions on there. And it just doesn't work like that. So you've got to have some, objective thinking and go, okay, well, maybe there was a problem with the aircraft, or maybe there was a problem with the load, or maybe there was a problem with the crew. So maybe they had to do a crew swap or a plane swap or something like that. And, yeah, you can point to the other COVID-19 stuff where the military made everybody wear masks. They made everybody get vaccines and stuff like that. Like, And that's a mess up. That was not good. And that's one of those things that is like, if you're going to point at something and go, "Whoa, you guys did this," then at that point, I would totally agree with you and go, "Yeah, it was wrong. It shouldn't have happened. It definitely shouldn't have happened that way." And some of us fought it, some of us didn't, some of us just said, "Yeah, whatever. Orders are orders." Um, I was not one of those people that said orders are orders and I just followed it. I fought it every step of the way, as much as I possibly could. And yeah, there you go. Um, so, oh, look at that. Just a little hoist in here. No big deal. These are those packets that you guys hear us talk about. Drinkhoist.com, promo code one's ready. Number 6, career opportunities post-military. Now, we actually get this question a lot, and what skills, and I think it does depend on what job you pick, but specifically let's talk about Air Force Special Warfare or any of the kind of special operations jobs. Yeah, okay, yeah, I've been to air traffic control school. Could I go be an air traffic controller in a tower someplace on an airport? Yeah, maybe, but um unlikely, because those folks are so much better at air traffic control than I am. But what I do have, and I'm I'm rapidly understanding this as I start my kind of transition out of the military, is it's the SOFT, the soft skills that I learned, how to navigate situations, navigate personalities, organize things. That's one of the things that Aaron has really recognized as he has started to go into the private sector, and Trent for that matter, is that there's a lot of businesses that are just, they're well intentioned, they have great people, they have a great product, they're just not very organized. And the military and special operations will help you understand organization and processes, and you can recognize that and you can dive right into it, and it'll help other organizations. So it's those kind of skills that you bring to other companies or entrepreneurship or whatever it is, problem solving skills, communication skills, and organizational skills that will help you out. And that's what you are carrying over to the private sector post military. Let's see. Financial stability. While the military provides a stable income, concerns about pay, benefits, potential savings, and post service. Yes, that is a concern. Enlisted from the very beginning do not get paid very well, and now that changes as you go on, and you have certain allowances. You have your basic housing allowance, you have your basic allowance for food. Then, depending on where you're living, you have COLA, the cost of living allowance. If you're in Air Force Special Warfare, once you get through, then you'll start getting, your jump pays, your special duty pays, and all that kind of stuff. And there's a bunch of other career fields within the Air Force and the DoD that have special duty pays associated with them as well. And then when you start talking about sign-on bonuses for new recruits, then you start talking about reenlistment bonuses for new recruits, and they've raised the ceiling to where you can get a lot more money now for those reenlistment bonuses. So, yeah, is it as much pay as you deserve? And I'm strictly talking on enlisted here, just because I am enlisted. I'm not an officer, so I can't really speak to their pay, but I know that they get paid significantly more than enlisted do. But they have different jobs, different authorities, different expectations from them, and different risks as well. Um, but yes, that is a concern on the enlisted side of the house, and I think that is. I'm actually, in my opinion, I think that probably should go. That should probably move to like number 2 or 3, um, in terms of concerns. If we're actually prioritizing 1 through 10, that's me though. It's just it's expensive out there, and I'm basing that off of the current economy that we have right now in 2024. I didn't necessarily think this, 4, 5, 6 years ago, but just with the cost and increases everything, and the fact that, okay, yeah, you can earn more money by staying in longer and then also promoting, but the cost of living and the housing allowance and your pay does not keep up at least right now, does not keep up with inflation. It does not keep up with the housing market or anything like that. And it's also not our military leaders that decide this. This is Congress. And at least right now, we're not on par with inflation or the market rates or anything like that. So to me, that is more of a concern than some of the other things. Number 8, moral and ethical dilemmas, engaging in or witnessing actions that might conflict with a personal belief or ethics, especially in combat situations. Dude, I have seen questionable shit for sure. But I have never witnessed anything illegal, like in the way of, war crimes or anything like that. It's everybody, like, has there been some heated engagements, heated arguments, heated interactions between U.S. forces and enemies? Sure. I mean, that's what a firefight is. Like, I don't know. They're trying to kill us. We're trying to kill them. Like, that's the reality of it. So I don't think that happens as much as you think, especially for it to be a concern, number 8 of 10. Like, I don't know on that. But if you have seen something, and for sure people have seen something, because we're a microcosm of society when we have just 345 wait a minute 345 or 365,000 airmen in the Air Force. Like, there's going to be some bad apples. I mean, there's plenty of them. There are people that get separated or kicked out of the military every single day for doing illegal, immoral, unethical stuff. So that, like, of course it happens, but it's not as rampant as you think. There's a bunch of good people in the DoD, in the military, that are serving. Let's see. Number 9, training rigor. The intense physical and mental demand of basic training. Dude, I'm here to tell you, basic training is easy. Yeah, you get yelled at some. You're marching around, you're walking around a lot, so you got a lot of time on feet, but at least from special operations and Air Force special operations, or aspect war, dude, basic training is the easiest thing you'll ever do. Easy. So no, I wouldn't sweat that at all. Number 10, commitment and freedom. The long-term commitment, including potential reenlistment pressures and the loss of certain personnel. So I have never, I got to say, I have never pressured somebody into reenlisting. I'll sit there and I'll talk with somebody about it. I'll weigh the pros and cons of something, like, well, no kidding, write out on a whiteboard or whatever. Always happy to have that conversation. But I've never pressured somebody into reenlisting. And I also don't believe in the whole, like, oh, well, you're not reenlisting, so now you're PNG, you're persona non grata to me. Like, whatever, you're dead to me. Like, that's not a thing, at least from my aspect. And most of the dudes that I know, they go, okay, yeah, respect it. How can I help you transition appropriately? How can we make sure that you're set up? What's your finance situation and all that kind of stuff? That is how all of that should be handled. Yeah, would we love to keep you if you're a good dude, good person in the Air Force? Would we love to keep you? Absolutely. But we're not going to pressure you. At least I'm not, and nobody really I know is going to pressure you to stay in and reenlist. Loss of personal freedoms. So that is in this commitment and freedom thing. You could say that because of my rank, I probably have. You could make the argument that less people are going to come after me because of my rank. Maybe. But you could also make the argument that I would receive more pressure at my rank because of the rank. There's more, what I would say would hold more weight, or they would the expectation of professionalism and get on board, get on the Air Force brand, get on the DoD brand, you support everything the military does. That pressure is heavier on me because of my rank than an E4, E5. But you could also say like, well, an E4, E5, and obviously we've seen it on some of these TikTok things that Trent covered already, I think, or has covered, and we haven't released it. But where you have these military leaders that are counseling individuals like live on TikTok or live on Instagram because of things that they posted, like that's insane. Now that you want to talk about toxicity, there you go right there. But I don't know. You do have a First Amendment right. Like it'd be different. Like I can get up here and I can kind of say whatever I want. Now I may hear about it going like, dude, really? You're able to say that and you're a chief in the Air Force? Like, come on, dude, have a little bit more responsibility and professionalism than that. At the same time, I'm not wearing a uniform. I have the disclaimer that, everything that I say is my opinions and my opinions alone. It does not reflect on the Air Force. So I still have First Amendment rights. I still have Second Amendment rights. I still have Fourth Amendment rights, except for, if I have my car on base, then I kind of give up that Fourth Amendment, right? Like if security forces see something in my car, they suspect something in my car, then they can just search it. They don't need a warrant or anything like that. So there are those kind of little things that you navigate, but for the most part, I have the same exact rights as everybody else. Like it doesn't change just because I signed on the dotted line to sign my life away. So anyway, I just wanted to get on here and cover that. Again, you guys know I'm trying to work on my reps in terms of getting these solos in because I'm trying to grow up and be like Trent because he crushes these things without issue. But I'm also limited on time, so that's why I'm cutting this one kind of short. But those are the 10 things that I have found when I've done some research that as of today are the top 10 things that people are concerned about when it comes to joining the military. I think some of them are valid. I think I don't want to take validity away from anybody else, and I already talked about that at the beginning. But man, I think some of these are a great big nothing burger, or they're blown out of proportion, or the media or Hollywood makes you think that these are more of an issue than they actually are. And we've talked about that before too, in terms of these veterans that are broken when they leave the military, or they're constantly depressed. Like does that happen occasionally? Sure, a handful of people, but not to the extent that the media and social media and movies would have you believe. That is not the way it works. So we talked about a lot of good stuff, I think. Please leave a comment. Give me some feedback too. Like leave a comment on the content, but give me feedback. How can I get better at this? What are some ways that you've seen other, you know, shows or podcasts or whatever? What have you seen them kind of do as a solo? Like I know Bill Burr does solos. I know there's quite a few people that do solos. So what have you seen them do or heard them do that has helped their show or their content be better when they're doing solos? Because right now, with it just being me, like I can usually rely on Trent or Aaron or a guest to kind of fill the empty space, but at the same time, like so I could take a drink instead of drinking or coughing or whatever, clearing my throat while we're talking. But I know that when it's solo, the dead space is kind of weird, and it's kind of like the things cut out. So I don't know. Interested in your feedback. So please leave a comment, leave us a review over at Apple Podcast or on Spotify. Like it, hit the notification bell, and then go over to onesready.com. We've got Attack Elite gear there. We've got our own merch there. Christmas is coming, dude. It's mid-October. And that means, we may as well have Christmas decorations up now. We still have Halloween and Thanksgiving to get through, but dude, if you're listening to this, you know it. When September rolls around, dude, the year's over. September, October, November, December, gone. And then we start 2025. You know what's going to happen in 2025? We still gotta survive November 5th. I think it's the 5th or 6th, election day. We still gotta survive election day. But man, it's gonna be wild. And I'm here for it. So really appreciate all of you. Thank you. Bye.
Hey everybody, I'm doing the second half of the top 10 concerns for people joining the military. So Jared recorded the first half, and just to be uh, open kimono about this. I did not listen to his episode because while I think that I might be a good person, I'm not always a nice person, and I don't want to just like unleash my inner contrarian and listen to his yet, and then just make counterpoints to what he said, whether I agree with it or not, because that's what I find entertaining. That's what I like to do. And I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go through the same things and hopefully we have slightly different takes on this. And if we don't, then you know that we're just, we all kind of come to the same conclusions, I guess, as we get old and do the same thing, similar things over 20 plus years in the military. So the episode is about, he sent me the note like, joining the military is a significant life decision and people have concerns, right? And these are the top 10 concerns that Jared has come up with, which I think are reasonable based on the questions that we get in the comments that we get and Reddit. So here we go. The number one thing is personal safety. The inherent risk of injury or death during combat or training is a primary concern for many people. Hey y'all, you're gonna die, right? Um, and it's a funny thing. I was never. I don't think I've ever been. I don't think about death that much anymore. I guess when I was younger, I was very very concerned about my own safety and that type of thing. Like an inherently cautious person by nature. Um, but as you get older, you realize that time is limited. And I'm not breaking any new ground here, I guess. But anything that you do can involve personal risk of injury or death. And so I don't understand that. Like the reason that most of us do what we do is because it's dangerous. Like that is the draw. And so it's funny to me when people will come to us and be like, well, it's dangerous. So they make these comments or do or whatever, say these things, then it's obviously not for them. Like the job's not for you if that's like your primary concern. And I think most of this is coming from people around the person, right? Like I wasn't overly concerned with my well-being as I joined, but my mom was, you know. And so like I get that. I'm a parent. I get that. If my son decided to join the military, which I'm, my number on my list of fears as a father, right, is it's pretty high up there. So I understand that because they're concerned about you. But as a 20 something year old dude, I was definitely more concerned about squeezing something out of life than I was about my own personal safety. And the dangerous part of the job, getting close to that danger, getting close to those risks, was a huge reason for me to do what I was doing. I wanted to know what I was made of. Like if you see this on Instagram all the time. Like if you don't do something every day that scares you, then what are you doing? And it's like, yeah, like that's what we did. That was the beginning half of my career. You're doing scary stuff all the time, and that's what makes it good. You're doing things that are awful all the time. You're taking risks. You're sliding out of helicopters on ropes, or you're jumping out of planes, or you're shooting live rounds, and you're blowing up whatever, or you're drinking with the team guys. All of these things are incredibly risky propositions. So that's the best part about the job, is that you get to know who you are in these situations where you know how close you are to death. And that's one of the reasons. Like that's at least an enticing thing for me as a young man was the experience of getting close to dangerous things. So I don't understand that. Like I understand if it's your parents or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your dog or whatever, is very concerned about your safety. And I'm not saying that you should be totally unconcerned with your safety, right? Because safety is very important to us and being professional and all those other things. But the thrill of doing something dangerous and then coming out the other side and surviving and doing it over and over and over again and getting better at it, I think that's most of us are seeking. So if you're, as an individual, if you're that young person and this is your big concern, is getting hurt or injured or dead, it's probably not for you. So there we go. Number 2, and this is gonna second one's gonna have a couple bugaboos for me, and maybe this is good where we're gonna find out more about me than you want to, is mental health. And it says here the psychological impacts of the military service, including PTSD, stress, adjustment disorders. I don't know what that means. I have no formal definition in my head for what adjustment disorders are. Is a major worry given the high intensity environments and potential for trauma. Okay, I've said it before. Trauma is not necessarily a bad thing. And I heard something interesting today actually, and it kind of piqued my interest. And I didn't listen to the whole thing. I was scrolling through Instagram for a second. I was probably doing something in the bathroom, and some guy was talking about superheroes, and I'm not like a big superhero guy or any of that stuff. I know you're going to find that super surprising that I'm not into that stuff. But the superheroes and the villains have the same origin story. The difference between them is what they decide to do after whatever traumatic event they had in their childhood, right? You kind of go one of two ways. And we all have the opportunity to take these negative things in our life, and we can become a better person, or we can become a worse person. We can a victim of the circumstance, or we can become who we could be and stronger than we were before, because of that event. And I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of put into that's one of the things I try to talk about a lot is, yes, like, bad things happen. Like, we spent 20 years at war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we all lost friends. We all had friends get injured and blown up, and Jared used to be 6 feet tall, and now he's 5'3". So it was a terrible, terrible things happened over there, and I'm not saying that those events are positives, but if you work through it and you do some good things, with that trauma, and you work on yourself and you understand the true perspective of it, where like your friends knew the risks and that they wanted to be there, and then you're still alive. What are you going to do with your life? Are you just going to sit there the rest of your life and make yourself the victim because your buddy died? Like, how like self-centered is that? And I'm not saying that this stuff doesn't mess with people. I'm not saying I've never had issues with any of these things. I'm just saying, coming out the other side, like, you do have a decision, and it is up to you. Is are you gonna make a positive change because of that? Are you going to get the correct perspective, or a perspective that leads you to becoming a better person, to making the world a better place, to being a positive influence on your family and your friends and all this other stuff? Or are you just gonna become an alcoholic and go down to the VFW and talk about the worst day of your life for the rest of your life? You know, it can either be one day, or it can be the rest of your days. And that's the truth. And we see it go both ways. You can become the superhero or the villain. And I know, overcoming a lot of the stereotypes in Hollywood and on social media, like, you get a lot of play out of talking about PTSD and mental health and all this other stuff. And it's not that I don't have any sympathy, and it's not that I don't. There aren't situations where we want to help our buddies out and all these other things, but the goal is not to stay in that place. The goal is to take your experiences, take your high functioning self, and use those skills that you learned, and that person that you were, get a new tool bag of things to deal with the stuff that you went through, and transition into a better human being than you were prior. That is the goal. And it's not always possible. And obviously, I'm also a victim of my own circumstance, right? Like, I'm a naturally positive person. Maybe not naturally. It took some work when I was younger to become a positive person, but I decided at one point in my life to become a positive person. It's just easier. And as all of us know, I'm lazy. And being happy, it takes a lot less energy than being grumpy all the time, And it just makes me feel better. And I don't like to feel bad. And so maybe I'm just a selfish person, but I refuse to go down the rabbit hole of mental health and all this other stuff. It is a risk, like, and if you do this job, yeah, you're gonna lose some friends. You're gonna see some stuff. You're gonna go through some stuff. You're gonna get hit in the head. But there's never been a better time to overcome those things than today. Like, I'm read in on a bunch of the stuff that people are doing to solve these problems. And once you get out, there's not a lot of things that you can't do. There's not a lot of support that you don't get. And then, going on the special operations side, the number of people that want to help you when you get out is ridiculous. And if there's anybody that I would say gets left behind, it's the thousands and millions of people that were not special operations guys, or not infantry folks, that ended up in situations that they weren't trained for, prepared for, or wanted to get themselves into, that got into these situations that just get left behind. And for them, that's a different situation. The situation of leaving people behind versus taking those experiences and becoming a better person. Those are two different things. And I think we could do a much better job But I think we all have the capability to take these things and become better people, or most of us do. So, like, if that's the excuse that you're going to use for not joining, is like, I don't want PTSD. Like, PTSD doesn't just exist in the military. You know, talk to your first responders, talk to nurses, talk to anybody, people that have come up on car accidents, just because they were there. People that have seen things happen to kids just because they were there. Wrong place, wrong time. And you know, you have to deal with it. And it is what it is. So you have a choice, though. I'm saying you always have a choice. And you might need to ask for some help, and that's hard. And I think that's the biggest problem is sometimes people have a hard time asking for help, or they become addicted to the attention of PTSD, the PTSD syndrome, right? Saying that they had PTSD, like, this is a different subject, and I get it, but like the whole telling people that you're in the military and the juice you get out of that, and the juice you get out of, I don't want fireworks in my neighborhood, and the juice you get out of, car backfires. I don't even know if cars backfire anymore, but hearing a loud noise, be like, oh, PTSD. I always have to sit with my back to the door. It's like people take it to sometimes it's not always PTSD. Sometimes it's attention-seeking behavior, and that's just the truth. So anyway, moving on. That was fun. All right. Yeah, we're on time. We got time. Long-term health. Okay. Oh, hey, if I join when I get out, am I just going to be a broken down person? You're going to have some bumps and bruises. But along with those come memories, and probably accomplishments. So you can either have a bad back from sitting in an office chair, or you can do this other thing. So there you go. I think those are your choices. I mean, and that's not always your choices. Like, you could become a competitive rock climber, and that's awesome. But you're going to have bumps and bruises too. You can be a competitive anything. Like, you could live a rich and rewarding life outside of the military. But if you're really pushing yourself to squeeze the most out of life, you're probably going to have some bumps and bruises. You're probably going to get hurt. Lots of people get hurt in a lot of different ways. So if your long-term health is your, I don't know, like, these all just seem like excuses to me, really. And I don't want to be a huge jerk today. But it's like, well, the guys that get out. Hey, let's just talk about this. Separating there's a few things that are happening, right? If I'm with my buddies, and we like to complain, and it's just what we do, but most of it's just funny, right? Like, I was with my buddy who was retiring from the Army after 24 years over the weekend. And yeah, it's nice to talk to somebody that understands. My back hurts when I wake up, my knees hurt, all this other stuff. But guess what we also did? We also worked out in his gym, and we could do it. And we're both, fairly fit 40-something-year-old dudes. And yeah, we have some memories, and we have some clicks, and we have some surgeries behind us. But so what? What's the alternative? Like, if you're the person asking these questions or have these concerns, I'm concerned about my long-term health and blah, blah, blah. I see lots of dudes my age that are overweight guys that have regular jobs. Is that better for your long-term health than, having a torn up knee or some discs that I need to work on my back? I don't know, but I would rather be me than them every single day. Every single day. So, the job's not for everybody. All right, that was number 3. Let's move on. All right, this is deployment and separation from family. Yeah, you're going to be gone. Because there is a hierarchy in the military. And I don't even want to say hierarchy, but like, if you volunteer for these jobs, more is expected, right? More, you're going to be gone more. You got to train more. You're expected to make more sacrifices. You're expected to, there's the pros and cons, right? Like, you get a lot of stuff, but there's always strings attached because it's the military. And sometimes you end up on the positive side of that. Like, we get way better gear and more gear typically, and we get to go do fun training that we think is fun. And then we get to do all the things that we always want to do and get paid to jump out of planes and shoot guns and all these other things. But you're going to be gone more because that's what you signed up for. So, like, just like if you, I know entrepreneurs that, especially in the beginning, they're also gone a ton. It requires a lot. And even if you're not gone, You're not present at home if you're like, starting up a business at home. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to be successful in anything. And we expect you to be to be successful in this community is not altogether different from being successful in any other community, right? If you're a doctor and you want to own your own practice and you want to have the best practice in your city, it's going to take a lot. If you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a mechanic, if you want to start your own business, it takes a lot. And so that's what we expect from you. If you want to call yourself, a special operations guy, an elite person, if you want to say that you're these things, if you want to wear the funny hats, like that's the expectation. And it's not different from being successful in the regular world. So yeah, that's what I think. So and I'm not saying it's not hard, but choose your hard. You can be home every night, and I understand that. Like my wife and I didn't have kids until a little bit later on, in our lives. We were a little bit older. And so it's easier for me to sit here as my kids are still, pretty early on in school and I'm retired to say that it's easier. But like everybody's different. If you have kids already joining, maybe it's not the right idea for you. And I'm not saying like you should pick this over your family if that's not the right choice. If it's not the right choice for you, it's not the right choice. And if you pick your family, I'm not going to sit here and be like, you made the wrong choice, bro, because you decided to raise your kids and to sacrifice for that instead of your career or your job or to be special operations. That's stupid. I'm just saying like this is a choice that you're going to make. And if you're part of this community, especially, or if you're in the military in general, like there's no excuse now to join and to not understand what the expectations are across the board. You have YouTube, you have your phone. You're obviously listening to this podcast, so there's not a lot of surprises there. All right, and stress, yeah, it's stressful, whatever. this one's funny to me. Military culture and discipline, adapting to the strict discipline, hierarchy, and culture of the military, which can be significantly different from civilian life. So I had jobs before I joined, and I had good bosses, and I had bad bosses. And I had bosses that I was smarter than and bosses that were fantastic and way smarter than I'll ever be and were motivated to do their job. And I had mentors. When I was selling cars, there were dudes I looked up to. There were dudes that were a-holes. There was all kinds of things. And I don't know how that's that much different than the military. Yeah, you wear a uniform, and there are potentially very severe consequences for not doing what you're supposed to do, especially earlier on in your career as you're going through this and you're more prone to mistakes. But I mean, I don't know. I just don't. You have to wear a uniform for a lot of things. You have to do what your boss says for a lot of things. Yet you can't quit. But it's not that bad, especially in the Air Force. This isn't the Army. If you join the Army, like I get it. But that culture shock and all that other stuff, it's not like it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to take the first 2 years of your career and just to learn how to be the most disciplined person you can possibly be. For a lot of us, I think that joined the military or are thinking about it, that's exactly what we need. We need, to set a foundation of discipline, and it helps you out for the rest of your life. And the military is really good at that. At least it was for me. Like I really embraced all the stupid Air Force isms. Like I really embraced like shining my boots. I really embraced the customs and courtesies. I really embraced all of those things. Because it made it easier later on, and it's what I needed. And I recognized at a certain point in my life that that's what I needed. So if it's not what you need and you're not willing to do it, then don't join. And I don't know, this is like my relationship advice, right? Like maybe it's just my mood today. I don't know. And I'm sure Jared, when he talked about this stuff, is a lot more nuanced and nice about it. Maybe, I don't know. Jared has been a little loose lately too. But I don't know in what world you live in where learning discipline is a bad thing. So if you have a comment about that, tell me where discipline, being a disciplined person, has been a negative for you. Go ahead and let me know in the comments if being disciplined is a bad thing and it's had negative results in your life. Please let me know so that I can call you an idiot. All right, next. Career opportunities post-military. Okay, here we go. All right. Uncertainty about translating military experiences into civilian career opportunities or education benefits like the GI Bill. I don't care. I don't care about you post-military. I really don't. Do you want to do the job or not? If you're planning for the future, if you want very specific things, then go do it. Like joining this, like this community, and being like, this is going to be a stepping stone to something else. Okay, but I don't want you here. Like I wouldn't want you on team. It's going to take everything you've got just to get there, and then you can make plans after that. And if you if you join the military and you work hard and you get everything out of it, you can do whatever you want on the other side. But there's no guarantees. Just like in life, there are no guarantees. It says it on the whiteboard. There are no guarantees in life. So if you're more worried about getting a job afterwards and how much money you're going to make and blah, 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 I have no patience for that. I really don't care. And what do you guys do when they get out? Whatever they want, whatever you want. I don't care. So trying to find something nice to say about that, but I can't think of anything. There's a lot of benefits. There's the GI Bill. There's all the other stuff, but I don't care. I don't care what you do. If you're going to join, be the best whatever that you joined as that you can be, and then figure it out. But I'm not a big planner too. So like, hopefully Jared had some good advice on this one, because I'm just like, maybe I just hate that question. That might be my new least favorite question is, what kind of job can I get when I get out? I don't know. Maybe be homeless for all I care. All right. Financial stability. All right. Jeez, this really is a Jared list. While the military provides a stable income, concerns about pay, benefits, potential for savings, and post-service financial planning are common. I think everybody has those concerns right now. Being in the military is not a high-paying job, but like we hire you, especially on the enlisted side. I'm talking about the enlisted side. We hire you with a high school diploma, and there are probably better jobs you can get with a high school diploma that pay more. But a lot of those jobs are going to require similar kind of sacrifices that the military makes, and we pay you while we train you. Like this is a very like kind of good system. Like, is the economy crap right now though? Yes. I'm not going to pretend like everybody in America isn't struggling right now that's making less than like $300,000 or whatever it is that it requires for you to be upper middle class these days, which is insane. But historically speaking, and if the economy comes back or whatever, it's not that bad. And the military tries really hard to take care of you. Are you going to be rich? Probably not. And if money is the most important thing to you, you could still be in. There's plenty of people that retire with a lot of money, and then there's other people that retire and they're broke. But that's just their personal, priorities and what they want. And so, that's going to be up to you and what you want. Like if you're if you're an airman and you're driving like a brand new Camaro and you're like, I don't have any money. Yeah, no kidding. You're driving a car that's way too expensive for you. Get a used car. You don't need to go out every weekend. You don't need to buy the nicest clothes. You don't need the newest thing. You don't need all these other things. All right. You don't need to put stuff on credit cards. This is part of the discipline thing. Like this is one of the things that really helped me out as well, is if you don't have a lot of money, but you are like living on base and you're in the barracks, you should be able to save some money, and you don't need that much to be, comfortable in this world. I think in America, the word need is overused. And I know this is coming from a retired E8, right, who was married to a retired officer. And I'm not saying that I'm struggling. I'm not. And I'm not saying that I understand what it's like to be an airman today, because I'm not going through it. But maybe look at your life and determine if all the things that you need are actual needs, and determine if you can make some sacrifices today to set you up for the future. And if you're thinking about joining, there are a lot of benefits in the military beyond just the paycheck, beyond the base pay, right? Like you get a bunch of other stuff, and it's not a ton, but I never had a hard time, and I think there are people having a hard time right now, and especially depending on where you live. But the military is going to try really hard to make sure that you at least have enough to get by. So then this is kind of a hard one just right now, right? Like I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, whatever, when I joined, this wasn't a huge concern for everybody. You know, getting an apartment off base did not take up a substantial amount of my paycheck. And so I know things have changed, but just like everybody else in the country, you're probably gonna have to downsize a little bit, or whatever, or you're gonna have to make wiser financial decisions, and it's gonna take up more of your brain space than it did in the past. And maybe don't have all the credit cards. Maybe don't, you don't have to fly all the time. You don't need an expensive car. You don't need all these things. And so that's just life, though. So figure it out. Good luck. Number 8, moral and ethical dilemmas. Engaging in or witnessing actions that might conflict with personal beliefs or ethics, especially in combat situations. Okay, during the old global war on terror, there were situations where you you a lot of us, okay, I had situations where I could have done things that would have bothered me, and I didn't do them. Like it's not like you lose all autonomy, especially in these career fields, right? Like I just you still get to make decisions, right? And if I shoot at someone that's shooting at me, it doesn't bother me at all. Now, whether I agree about the reasons that we're in that country or not, right? That's something that I have to deal with. And that's something that you have to deal with. But like when it comes down to it, when someone starts shooting at you, it's not that hard of a decision. And we are the we are the action arm of America's foreign policy. And that is set forth by the civilians in Congress, right? And the president. And so we go where they tell us to go based on theoretically the will of the people. And as long as you don't do anything, that's morally or ethically wrong in a combat situation, then what are you worried about? So you might see some shady stuff. Maybe I'm trying to think if I saw anything like that was super shady. I don't think I did. And there's a lot of things that happened, but it was never a problem for me. And granted, and I don't know if you picked up on this, I live kind of like a blessed life. I live in like this little bubble of protection, and I've always lived in this thing where I just float through my life, and things tend to work out. And if I seize opportunities, I work a little bit, things tend to work out for me. But there's going to be moral and ethical dilemmas anywhere in life, and I know this is like the theme of today is, you're going to have to deal with these things in real life as well. If you're working on Wall Street, are you telling me that you are morally and ethically pleased with what's going on? If you're paying your taxes, are you pleased with where your tax dollars are going? Are you happy that you're funding these things anyway? Because you can either be there on the ground, but even if you're not, your money paid for me to be there. So we're all kind of in this together. So you can either be there to make the good and bad decisions, or you cannot be there. It's up to you. All right. Last two real quick. I know Jared did like 30 minutes, so I'm trying to keep this fairly short. Training rigor. When was the last time you heard the word rigor? The training is so rigorous. The intense physical and mental demands of basic training. Basic training? Really? And ongoing specialized training can be daunting. Yeah, that's the point. That's why you should want to join. If you're not looking forward to that, don't join. But most of us were seeking out the challenge, and it was awesome. And getting through those challenges makes you a better version of yourself, and you get to know who you are and what you're capable of. So if that's not something that you're seeking out, then don't join. All right, and don't volunteer for extra stuff to do the harder jobs. There it is. It should be something that you want to do. It should be something that you look forward to. It should be something that is daunting and scary to you. And that's the whole point, is to be the best version of yourself that you can be, not only for you, but for your teammates, for your country, for your community, for all those things. So if you're not willing to do hard stuff, get bent. Go away. All right, good. All right. Commitment and freedom. And the long-term commitment, including potential reenlistment pressures and the loss of certain personal freedoms and privacy. All right, first of all, for all the NCOs or senior NCOs out there who think it's their job to try to talk people into reenlisting, like 100% of the time, you're morons. That's not your job. Your job is to give people good advice and be mentors. All right. There are people that I've told them, like, if you don't have a plan getting out, if you have no idea what you're doing, if you have no money in the bank, if you have no place to go to, if you're just relying on luck in your civilian endeavors as you head out there, like, maybe it might work out, but like you could reenlist for like 4 more years, and you know what that is. So you have a known and an unknown, right? And I'm not opposed to unknowns, because especially the folks that I worked with in the military, they're pretty comfortable with unknowns, and they're motivated people, and they're capable people. They're also like oftentimes like a specific brand of not smart, even though they're hyper capable in other ways. And so I've told people that maybe it's a good idea to reenlist, but it's definitely up to them. But so that pressure shouldn't really exist. And if somebody tells you that you should definitely reenlist, blah blah blah, then they just don't listen to them. And you don't have to listen to people. Like, I don't. A lot of these things make it sound like you have no choices once you join the military. Like, you lose your ability to logically think about things and to make your own decisions. And that's just not the case, especially in our community. Like, the reason I stayed in 20 years is because there wasn't all this pressure. There wasn't all these things that I necessarily had to do. There was a bunch of stuff I wanted to do, and I liked what I was doing most of the time. And I had a lot of autonomy and freedom to do the things that I thought were important to get after the mission, whatever that mission was, whether that was in the training side or the operational side. And so, like, I didn't feel like I was stuck or suppressed too much, because I had a good time doing it, and I understood the environment that I was in. And yeah, I ignored probably a lot of stuff that I was quote unquote supposed to do that was in AFIs, and all these other silly rules that people think that are super important. And I just ignored them for much of my career. A lot of these, if I didn't value it, I just didn't do it most of the time, unless I absolutely had to, unless someone cornered me and forced me to do it, which wasn't very often. Most of the time I was just able to ignore it, just go do what I wanted to do. And as long as I was getting after the mission and taking care of the important stuff, no one really cared that much. People don't really care that much. So it wasn't that hard. So I had a good time. Loss of certain personal freedoms and privacy. Yeah, that's a thing. You're going to have to do your job. But, if you're working 60 hours a week at your civilian job, then like, how much personal freedom do you have anyway? Like, it's just a job. You still have off time. There are things that you're not supposed to do. But especially these days, it seems like, your personal opinions, you can share them online. People can ask for donations in uniform these days. So that, like, a bunch of this stuff is not really enforced anyway. So your privacy, like, I don't know what that means. Yeah, like, but everybody's getting hacked these days too. So, like, the old joke was like, I don't know if you've ever seen the meme. My social security number before I joined the military was like in a vault, and then after I joined the military, it's like a psyops helicopter throwing leaflets out. And that was kind of true. There's ways you can there's ways you can protect yourself with all that other stuff as well, if you do the smallest amount of research on the internet on how to protect you and your dad and all those other things, if that's super important to you, which was for me for a long time. But now I talk into the internet for 30 minutes at a time and tell you my real name and my real opinions. And I tell people that if they're not willing to make these sacrifices, then maybe they shouldn't join, especially this community. If they're not willing to do scary stuff and risk their life for a good time, and for the training, and to get after the stuff that is important to our country, and to be the best version of themselves, then don't join. All right. Nothing on this list nothing on this list exists only in the military. These are life events, mostly, that people are talking about. So if you're that person and you're coming after me, or you're getting on our page and you're talking about this stuff, I'll tell you, like, one of the reasons I don't answer a lot of questions is it just seems like a lot of excuses. And if you don't feel kind of like a calling into this, then it's not for you. And if you're not willing to work hard and to do scary things, then it's not for you. If you're not willing to take care of your own finances, then it's not for you. You're not going to be babysat after a while. Through the pipeline, you're kind of babysat, right? But at a certain point in the military, you're not babysat anymore. And at the end of the day, a lot of where you end up in life, in a general sense, has a lot to do with the decisions you make. So you can either do it in the military or not. I don't really care as long as you're a good person and you're doing the stuff that you want to do, and you're doing the stuff that you feel like you're called to do. That you feel like the stuff that you're doing the stuff that you're like inspired to do, and that's all it is. So yeah, like, subscribe, leave comments. I'm interested to see how different Jared and I are on some of these, and hopefully he was a little more positive on some of them, but we'll see. All right, later.